What happens when the person you trust most meticulously plots to destroy you, all while pretending to be your greatest ally? My story isn't just about a high school crush. It's about a betrayal so deep, so calculated, it nearly broke me. From the moment Hunter walked into our school that August, it was like a spotlight hit him. Cute, smart, and genuinely kind without even trying. I was completely, utterly captivated. A massive, undeniable crush hit me instantly, and who was the first person I spilled all my giddy secrets to? My friend, Valeria. She was incredibly supportive, her eyes wide with excitement. OMG, you guys would be perfect together, she'd shriek, helping me craft perfect texts, dissecting his every emoji, always pushing me. Go for it. He's totally into you. I'd known Valeria since freshman year, paired by chance for a biology project. We weren't inseparable best friends, but we shared most classes, hung out on weekends, and she always seemed to be in my corner. She helped with math, invited me to parties, that kind of stuff. I trusted her completely, implicitly. And that, looking back, is what makes everything that followed so much worse. By October, Hunter and I were actually talking more. He'd linger after chemistry, waiting to walk with me to lunch. Nothing major, but my heart was absolutely soaring. Valeria devoured every detail, every casual conversation. I thought she was just being a good friend, living vicariously through my budding crush. I remember one time, he complimented my history presentation, and I literally dashed to the bathroom, texting Valeria every breathless word. Her reply was a flood of heart emojis. He's definitely into you. She even spent 2 hours on FaceTime with me, helping me pick out the perfect outfit for the next day, while my mom teased me about my new obsession. I never told Mom it was about Hunter. My parents would have wanted to meet him immediately, analyzing every detail, which would have been mortifying. Then came November, and I finally mustered the courage to ask him to a movie. Valeria, naturally, helped me draft the text, word for word. My hands were shaking so hard when I hit send, I actually had to squeeze my eyes shut. He took forever to respond, and the eventual reply was a flat, sorry, was busy on Sunday night. Then, on Monday, he basically ignored me. Confusion swirled into a sickening knot in my stomach. It wasn't until Wednesday, when Tiffany approached my locker, asking if I was stalking Hunter, that the knot tightened into ice. I laughed it off, but then she dropped the bomb. Valeria had been telling everyone I was obsessed with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend? My world tilted. I had no idea they were even talking. That afternoon, I saw them. In the parking lot. His arm around her waist. And when she saw me looking, she whispered something to him, and they both laughed. The humiliation was a physical blow. I felt like the stupidest person alive. The rest of the day was a blur of misery. Mr. Benson, my English teacher, asked if I was okay because I was staring out the window instead of participating. I mumbled something about not sleeping, and he left me alone, thankfully. That night, the dam broke. I just cried. Hard. My brother Rodney, who's only 14, heard me through the wall. He knocked on my door, concerned, but I just told him it was period stuff to make him go away. I couldn't bear for anyone to know how utterly idiotic I felt. The next day, I confronted Valeria at lunch. My hands trembled so violently I could barely hold my tray. How long have you been dating Hunter? I managed to choke out. She just shrugged, completely unbothered, and casually said they'd been together since September. September. The entire time she was helping me, they were already together. When I asked her, my voice cracking, why she would pretend to help me when she knew I had no chance, she just gave another nonchalant shrug. I thought it was better than telling you to back off. She didn't even seem to think she'd done anything wrong. I just stood there, lunch tray in hand, feeling like every single eye in the cafeteria was on me. By Friday, the rumors were everywhere. According to Valeria, I was the desperate one, relentlessly chasing Hunter even though I knew they were dating. She started showing people our texts, twisting everything to paint me as some deranged stalker. I started skipping lunch, hiding away because the cafeteria felt like a gauntlet of whispers and stares. My parents, Noticing I wasn't eating, grew concerned. I lied again, blaming stress from upcoming tests. My dad even made my favorite pasta that weekend, trying to cheer me up, which only made the guilt of my lies even heavier. Then, my friend Ruby sent me screenshots from a group chat where Valeria and her cronies were openly mocking my obsession. Hunter was in it, calling me that weird girl who wouldn't leave him alone. I wanted to disappear. I deleted all my social media apps. Mom kept asking why I was so quiet, and I just blamed period cramps again. I spent Saturday in bed, watching TikToks, ignoring texts, making excuses to Jess when she invited me to a movie. I just couldn't risk running into Valeria or Hunter. December was a blur of hell. Someone scrawled "stalker" on my locker. My lab partner, Sam, asked our teacher to switch, muttering that he'd heard things. When I tried to tell Tiffany my side, she cut me off, saying Valeria had warned her I'd make stuff up. In chemistry, no one wanted me in their group. The teacher had to assign me, and the other kids barely spoke, one girl literally moving her chair away from me like I had a contagious disease. I'd already bought a ticket for the holiday dance, but I gave it to my brother's friend, telling my parents I had too much homework. They worried about me becoming antisocial, but didn't push it. Winter break was spent hiding. My cousin, usually my closest confidant, visited for Christmas, but I barely spoke to her. I overheard my aunt asking my mom if I was going through something, and later, whispering about teenage depression. When school started again in January, I tried to keep my head down, but Valeria wasn't done. She and Hunter would make out right in front of me, flaunting their relationship. She'd text me insidious little digs like, "Hunter thought your outfit was funny today," then deny sending anything. One weekend, my dad sat me down, his face etched with worry, asking if I was using drugs or something. I almost laughed at how wrong he was. I ended up lying again, blaming college applications, even though they were months away. He seemed relieved it wasn't drugs and offered to help me research schools, making me feel even more guilty. Then, in February, things took a truly sinister turn. Someone made a fake Instagram using my photo, sending creepy, obsessive messages to Hunter. Everyone assumed it was me. I was called to the counselor's office. My parents were called in. I kept saying it wasn't me, but no one believed me. My mom had to leave work early, her face a mixture of confusion and deep embarrassment as the counselor showed us the cringeworthy messages. "I dream about you every night, and we're meant to be together." Mom kept protesting. "This doesn't sound like my daughter at all." But the counselor just gave her a pitying look, as if she was in denial. At home, Mom tried to have a heart-to-heart about healthy relationships and obsession. I ended up screaming that I didn't do it and slamming my door, barely speaking to her for days. The only person who still talked to me, really listened, was Ruby's freshman sister, Yael. She believed me because Valeria had been cruel to her before, too. One day in March, I was at Yael's house studying, and she stepped away to get snacks, leaving her Facebook open on her laptop. I saw Valeria's name pop up in a conversation with Ruby. I know I shouldn't have looked, but a desperate, morbid curiosity seized me. What I found made me physically sick. Valeria had told Hunter she was pregnant to keep him from breaking up with her. She wasn't pregnant at all. She was faking morning sickness, making up doctor's appointments, and had sworn Ruby to absolute secrecy. There were messages where Ruby questioned the ultrasound pictures Valeria had shown Hunter, and Valeria admitted she got them from Google. She straight up told Ruby she wasn't pregnant, but needed Hunter to stay with her. My heart pounded. While Yael was downstairs, I snapped picture after picture of the conversation with my phone. I felt a pang of guilt for snooping, but a much stronger surge of something else. Vindication. I finally had proof. Proof that Valeria was a liar, a cruel manipulator. When Yael came back, I told her what I saw. She wasn't even surprised. She said lots of people knew, except Hunter, and Valeria had threatened anyone who might tell him. I went home that day feeling like I was carrying this impossibly heavy, dangerous secret. My head pounded. I couldn't focus on homework, on shows, on anything. Mom noticed I barely touched dinner, and I mumbled something about a headache, which wasn't entirely a lie. My head was definitely pounding from the stress. What was I supposed to do with this? Meanwhile, Valeria kept right on ruining my life. In April, she even convinced our English teacher to move my seat, claiming I was making her uncomfortable by looking at Hunter. My mom and dad argued about it that night when they thought I couldn't hear. Mom wanted me to switch schools, start fresh somewhere else. But Dad said running away wouldn't solve anything, that it would teach me the wrong lesson. I sat at the top of the stairs, listening to them fight about my future. Rodney found me there, only 14, but sometimes he seems smarter than me. He asked if I was okay, and for some reason, for the first time, I actually told him everything. The crush, Valeria's lies, the fake pregnancy, all of it. He just listened, without interrupting, which was incredibly weird for my usually verbose little brother. When I finished, he just said Valeria sounded like a psycho, and I should tell Hunter the truth. I tried to explain that no one would believe me, that it would just make everything worse. He couldn't understand why I wouldn't fight back. Then, Hunter posted the prom proposal on Instagram. A huge, elaborate display for Valeria. The caption? Can't wait to start our future with the mother of my child. Everyone was commenting, congrats about the baby. That was it. I snapped. I made an anonymous email address and sent Hunter everything. All the screenshots from Ruby and Yoel's conversation. I showed him the fake ultrasound, matching it to the Google image I found. I included specific details only Valeria would know. I felt sick after I sent it. I couldn't sleep that night, just staring at my ceiling, wondering if I had just made everything 1,000 times worse. My mom came in to check on me around 2 a.m., my light still on, and I pretended to have fallen asleep reading. By the way, if you've been gripped by this story so far, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I've got more wild tales of high school drama and unexpected twists coming your way. Asterisk, asterisk. 3 days later, everything exploded. Hunter confronted Valeria, and she admitted the pregnancy was fake. But somehow she twisted it. She claimed I had been plotting revenge because I was jealous that I'd catfished her to get her to reveal her secrets. Hunter broke up with her, yes, but that just made things even worse for me. People were grossed out by her lie, but they were even more disgusted by my obsessive investigation and cruel exposure of her personal stuff. Sam, my former lab partner, actually said in chem class that only a psycho would collect evidence for months just to destroy someone. Ruby confronted me, furious, about stealing conversations from her sister's computer, even though Yoel bravely told her she'd shown me willingly. My phone blew up with texts from numbers I didn't even recognize, calling me a psycho stalker and worse. Someone made a fake Twitter account with my name, posting creepy, obsessive garbage. My parents were horrified. Dad wanted to go to the police, but Mom said there was no way to prove who was behind it. Last week, Valeria's parents complained to the school. I was suspended for cyberbullying and creating a hostile environment. Hunter texted me to thank me for telling him the truth, then blocked me on everything. Mom cried when the principal called about my suspension. Dad got so angry, he had to leave the room during the meeting. When we got home, they argued again. Mom thought we should have switched schools when we had the chance. Dad insisted the school was completely out of line, punishing me instead of Valeria. I locked myself in my room, headphones on, trying to drown out the sound of them fighting about me. Rodney slipped a chocolate bar under my door with a note. This sucks. Not your fault. It made me cry even harder. So, I exposed someone who humiliated me and spread lies about me for months. I revealed a manipulation that was trapping someone in a relationship built on a monstrous lie. But now, I'm the toxic one. I'm the villain. Is it ever okay to expose someone's secrets if they hurt you first? Because from where I'm standing, the answer seems to be no, no matter how justified you might be. A lot has happened since then. My parents are taking this completely differently. Mom keeps scheduling meetings with the principal, threatening lawyers if they don't fix my suspension. Dad is more quietly furious, repeating that the school is teaching me that standing up to liars gets you punished. They argue constantly when they think I can't hear them. Mom thinks the school is bungling everything, but she also thinks I should have come to her before sending those screenshots. Dad says I did the right thing, but he's terrified of how this will affect my college applications. They both keep asking if I'm okay, but with such different tones. Mom all gentle concern, Dad trying to sound casual, but obviously worried sick. My suspension was reduced from 2 weeks to 1, but going back to school was awful. People weren't just whispering anymore. They'd straight up walk away when I approached. My usual lunch table was suddenly full when I tried to sit down. That first day back, I ended up eating in a bathroom stall. I know, it's gross and pathetic, but I couldn't face the cafeteria again after that initial rejection. I kept thinking about those movie scenes where the outcast eats alone, except in movies, they usually look cool and unbothered. I just felt like crying the whole time. When I got home, Mom asked about my day, and I lied, saying it was fine. Then I went to the bathroom and threw up from the sheer stress. Rodney heard me, knocking on the door, offering to make me toast. It was actually really sweet. The school counselor had the nerve to suggest I write Valeria an apology letter. When I flat out refused, she gave me this look like I was being difficult, talking about taking responsibility regardless of provocation. For what? Telling the truth? She gave me a worksheet on conflict resolution and empathy building. I wanted to scream that Valeria was the one who should be filling this out, not me. I shoved it into my backpack and never looked at it again. Meanwhile, Valeria was playing the victim perfectly. Sad captions on Instagram about healing from betrayal, learning who your real friends are. Her follower count actually went up. She deleted all her pictures with Hunter, replacing them with group shots of her surrounded by friends. The comments were flooded with hearts and "we love you" messages. She even posted a long paragraph about forgiveness and choosing to rise above the negativity. She never mentioned me by name, but everyone knew. Mom caught me crying while scrolling through Instagram and took my phone away. She was probably right that social media was making everything worse, but being disconnected just made me feel even more isolated. Back at school, I found out Ruby was telling everyone I'd manipulated Yoel into showing me private conversations. She claimed I'd been plotting for months to find dirt on Valeria. Yoel tried to defend me at first, but Ruby threatened to tell their parents about Yoel's vaping if she didn't back up the story. Now Yoel won't even look at me in the halls. I tried to talk to her between classes, but she literally turned and walked the other way. Later, she texted, apologizing, saying Ruby would make her life hell and their parents would kill her if they found out about the vaping, and Ruby had proof. I told her I understood, but it still hurt. The worst part was my parents fighting about what to do next. Mom still thought I should switch schools for senior year. Dad said that was letting the bullies win. Their whispered arguments were constant. I heard Mom crying in their room after one particularly bad one. I almost went in to comfort her, but I knew it would just make her feel worse to know I'd heard. Instead, I texted her a heart emoji with no explanation. She came to my room a few minutes later and just hugged me without saying anything. We both pretended not to notice we'd been crying. I felt so guilty for causing problems at home. Rodney, stuck in the middle, tried to make dumb jokes at dinner while Mom and Dad glared at each other. He's only 14, he shouldn't have to deal with this. He even tried to cheer me up by showing me ridiculous TikToks he made with his friends. They were actually pretty funny, and for a few minutes I forgot all the drama. Then he asked if I wanted to be in one, and I realized I couldn't risk being on social media at all right now. The look of disappointment on his face made me feel even worse. 3 days after I went back to school, Hunter came up to my locker. He asked if we could talk somewhere private, so we went to the empty band room during lunch. I was terrified someone would see us and start more rumors, but I was also weirdly happy he wanted to talk. He said he wanted to thank me again for telling him the truth. He told me Valeria had him completely convinced. She'd even faked throwing up in front of him, disappearing into bathrooms to vomit, showing him ultrasound photos with his last name crudely edited onto them. He looked so embarrassed, admitting how completely she'd fooled him. When I asked why he blocked me, he said Valeria still had access to his phone and blocked me herself before he changed his passwords. He seemed genuinely sorry, which made me feel a little better. He told me Valeria was telling people I photoshopped all the evidence, but he didn't believe it because the conversations had details from months ago that I couldn't have known. He was still processing everything, felt like an idiot. Things got awkward when he asked if I'd really been obsessed with him. I told him the truth. I had a crush on him, and Valeria knew because I told her. That's what made her betrayal cut so deep. He looked genuinely shocked when I explained how she had been helping me draft texts to him while they were secretly dating. I could see him putting the pieces together, realizing just how manipulative she had been to both of us. After our talk, Hunter said he believed me, but we probably shouldn't be seen talking at school. He didn't want more drama. I understood, but it still hurt. He checked the hallway before leaving to make sure no one saw us. That night, I broke down completely. Mom found me crying and sat with me for hours. I told her everything, not just the Hunter-Valeria stuff, but how lonely I'd been, how I couldn't take the isolation anymore. She just kept stroking my hair, like she did when I was little. And for once, she didn't try to offer solutions or tell me everything would be okay. She just listened. She suggested I talk to her sister, my Aunt Kelly, who went through something similar in high school. I was skeptical. Adults always think their high school experiences relate to yours, but they're usually clueless. But I was desperate enough to try anything. I called Aunt Kelly the next day. I was nervous at first, but she was surprisingly cool. She didn't give me any cheesy, it gets better speeches. She told me about her own best friend turning everyone against her senior year over a guy, how she felt like her life was over. She said high school feels like the whole world when you're in it, but in a few years, none of this will matter. Easy for her to say when she's 38 with a job and family, but it did help a little to know she'd survived something similar. Aunt Kelly suggested I focus on the people who were still in my corner and ignore everyone else as much as possible. My grades were tanking. It was impossible to focus. Every time someone whispered in class, I was convinced they were talking about me. I started sitting in the back row whenever possible, so I didn't have to feel eyes on me from behind. On Wednesday, I overheard Tiffany saying Valeria might transfer schools because of the hostile environment I'd created. The irony was unreal. I wanted to scream that she was the one who created a hostile environment for me. That afternoon in gym class, someone accidentally hit me in the back with a volleyball. I'm pretty sure it was one of Valeria's friends, but I couldn't prove it. The gym teacher just told us to be more careful. My back had a red mark for hours. When I got home, Rodney was waiting at the door, looking weirdly excited. He said he had a plan to clear my name that involved creating a fake social media account to trick Valeria into admitting she lied. I shut that down immediately. The last thing I needed was to get caught creating fake accounts when that's what people were already accusing me of. He looked disappointed, but I explained that fighting fire with fire would just make everything worse. He grudgingly agreed, but said he still thought Valeria deserved karma. I told him karma apparently takes vacations when it comes to popular girls. Things got weird on Thursday when Hunter texted, asking if we could meet. I was nervous, but agreed. Rodney insisted on coming with me, sitting nearby, just in case. It was kind of sweet, even if his protective act was ridiculous since he's younger than me. He wore a baseball cap, pulled low like some undercover agent, scanning the room dramatically. I had to tell him multiple times to stop staring at Hunter and act normal. He ordered some complicated frappuccino thing, then complained it was too sweet. The whole thing would have been funny if I wasn't so stressed. Hunter looked better than at school. He apologized for not standing up for me sooner. He'd been confused and embarrassed about the fake pregnancy, fidgeting with his coffee cup, admitting how stupid he felt for falling for Valeria's lies. The more he thought about it, he said, the more red flags he could see, but at the time he was just flattered by her attention. He mentioned she was always checking his phone, getting upset if he didn't respond right away. We were actually having a good conversation until Valeria walked in with two friends. Not a coincidence. Hunter later admitted she follows his location and he'd forgotten to turn it off. She made this big show of being shocked to see us, then loudly told her friends that I just couldn't leave them alone, even after everything. Rodney was halfway out of his seat, looking ready to confront her, but I gave him a look that screamed, "Don't you dare." Valeria's friends were taking pictures with their phones, and I knew this would be all over social media within minutes. Then Hunter surprised me. He actually stood up to her. He told her to stop spreading lies. He said he knew the truth now, that I'd had a crush on him, that she knew about it and went after him anyway. He knew she was never pregnant and manipulated everyone. Valeria immediately started crying, saying she couldn't believe he was taking her side after everything they'd been through. Everyone in the coffee shop was staring. Her friends glared at me like I'd caused the scene. An older woman at the next table openly watched, like it was a TV drama. We left quickly. Hunter walked us to our car, thanking me again for telling him the truth, even though it had cost me so much. He said he wasn't ready for any relationship right now, but hoped we could maybe be friends eventually. Rodney was buzzing with excitement the whole way home, saying Hunter was actually cool and Valeria got what she deserved. I was just exhausted and dreading the inevitable fallout. When I got home, my parents were sitting at the kitchen table, looking serious. The school had called them. Valeria's parents were threatening to file a restraining order against me, claiming I was harassing their daughter by meeting with Hunter. They'd somehow found out about the coffee shop within hours. I explained everything. How Hunter had texted me, how Valeria showed up after we were already there, how I didn't approach her at all. Dad was taking notes, his handwriting getting messier as he got more upset. My parents had another argument that night about how to handle everything. Mom wanted to be proactive, talk to Valeria's parents directly. Dad thought that would make things worse and wanted to wait and see if they actually filed or if it was just a threat. I could hear them from my room, their voices rising and falling, discussing logical next steps, then venting their frustrations. At one point, Mom started crying, saying she just wanted her happy daughter back. That made me feel horrible. The next morning at school, someone had taped a pregnancy test to my locker. It was negative, with a note that said, "Unlike some people, I'm not a liar." A teacher saw it and took it down before most people arrived, but a few early students definitely saw it. The teacher asked if I knew who did it, but of course, I had no proof. At lunch, I tried sitting with a group of girls I was friendly with but not close to. They didn't tell me to leave, but they suddenly became very interested in their phones and stopped talking. After 5 minutes of excruciating silence, I made an excuse about forgetting something in my locker and left. The worst part is, I'm starting to question myself. Was sending those screenshots the right thing to do? Should I have found another way to tell Hunter? Should I have just minded my own business and let him figure it out eventually? Dad says I did what anyone would do when faced with such a massive lie. Mom says she understands why I did it, but wishes I'd handled it differently. I still don't know if I did the right thing. Was it worth it? Hunter knows the truth now, but my life is a complete disaster. My family is stressed, and my last year of high school is ruined. I'm so tired of being the villain in someone else's story. It's been a month since that last update, and honestly, I needed time to process everything. That Monday after my last post was one of the worst days yet. I walked into school to find people staring at their phones, then looking up at me. Valeria's friends had posted photos from the coffee shop confrontation with a completely twisted version of what happened. According to them, I had ambushed Valeria, and Hunter had defended me out of pity. The comments called me pathetic, psycho, stalker, you name it. I almost turned around and went home, but I knew that would just make things worse. Instead, I put my headphones on, blasted music, and pretended I couldn't hear the whispers as I walked to my locker. That's when I found the note. Just the word liar in huge letters taped to my locker. I showed it to the counselor, who basically shrugged and said there was nothing she could do without knowing who put it there. She even suggested I was focusing too much on the negative and should move forward. In history class, Miss Parker assigned group projects, and no one would make eye contact when she asked us to form groups. She had to assign me, and my group looked like they'd been sentenced to community service. During lunch, I hid in the library. Mrs. Gonzalez, the librarian, has always been kind. She pretended not to notice I was eating a sandwich behind a book, which is against the rules, and even recommended a novel. It was a small kindness that meant more than she probably realized. That same day, I got called to the principal's office. Valeria's parents had filed an official complaint against me for harassment and bullying. They wanted more punishment. They claimed I was still spreading rumors and had orchestrated the coffee shop thing to humiliate her. Principal Matthew looked utterly done with the whole situation. He barely looked at me while explaining the complaint. He told me that without proof of who left the note, he couldn't do anything about that, but any more incidents with Valeria would have serious consequences. When I tried explaining my side, he cut me off, saying he'd heard enough from both sides. I left his office feeling like I might throw up. I went straight to the bathroom and called Mom, crying. She came right away and demanded to see the principal. I could hear her yelling through the door. When she came out, she looked mad but satisfied. In the car, she told me she'd made it clear, if the school punished me again without doing anything about the harassment I was getting, we'd be looking at legal options. I didn't tell her that made me even more nervous. The last thing I wanted was to become the girl whose mom sued the school. That would just make the target on my back even bigger. That night, we had a family meeting in the living room. Dad made it official by turning off the TV and making Rodney put his phone away. They said they were worried about how this was affecting all of us. Mom admitted she wasn't sleeping. Dad said he was distracted at work. Mom asked what I wanted to do. Keep fighting? Switch schools? Something else? I honestly didn't know. They agreed to give me time to think, promising they wouldn't make any decisions without my input. The next day at school, I kept my head down, trying to be invisible. It mostly worked until gym class, when we had to choose teams for volleyball. I was the last person picked, and even then, the team captain rolled her eyes like she was being forced to take me. During the game, no one would pass to me, even when I was in the best position. I pretended not to care, but it was humiliating. After school, I had therapy with Dr. Landry. I finally told her the whole truth about everything, including finding the pregnancy information on Yael's computer. I was afraid she'd judge me, but she just listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said something that actually helped. You're not responsible for other people's lies, only for how you respond to them. That weekend, my parents took us to visit my grandparents in the next town over. It was actually a relief to be somewhere different, with people who didn't know any of the drama. Grandma fussed over how thin I looked and tried to feed me constantly, while Grandpa taught Rodney card tricks. For a few hours, things felt almost normal. Sunday night, Hunter texted me, asking how I was doing. We ended up texting for hours. He told me more about his relationship with Valeria, how controlling she'd been, checking his phone constantly, getting upset if he spent time with friends without her. He said the pregnancy lie was the most extreme thing, but looking back, he could see she'd been manipulating him all along. He apologized again for believing her lies about me and for not standing up sooner. He seemed genuinely remorseful, which helped heal some of the hurt. We agreed to be cautious, but maybe try being friends. He suggested we could study together sometime, somewhere off campus, to avoid drama. Monday morning, I felt slightly better. Having Hunter believe me and apologize made a difference, even if the rest of the school still thought I was crazy. But when I got to first period, I noticed people looking at their phones and then at me again. My stomach dropped. Someone had created a fake profile using my name and picture on a dating app. The profile said I was looking for pregnancy roleplay and other disgusting stuff. Screenshots were circulating all over school. I wanted to die of embarrassment. I went straight to the counselor's office, but she was with another student. The secretary took one look at my face and let me wait in the empty conference room instead of the main office where everyone could see me crying. When I finally saw Miss Barnes, I showed her the screenshots. She looked uncomfortable, but said since it was created outside of school, there wasn't much they could do. I asked if they could at least make an announcement that it wasn't me, but she said that would just draw more attention to it. I called Mom from the office and she came to pick me up. I couldn't face the rest of the day with everyone thinking I'd created that profile. In the car, Mom was furious. She wanted to go straight to Valeria's house and confront her parents, but I begged her not to. That would just make everything worse. Instead, we went home and reported the fake profile to the dating app. They said they'd investigate, but who knows how long that would take. Dad came home early when Mom called him, and they spent the evening making calls to their lawyer friend, to the school board, even to the local police to see if this qualified as identity theft or harassment. The police officer wasn't very helpful. He said unless there were specific threats, it was a school issue, not a criminal one. Dad was frustrated, but Mom pointed out that involving police would just escalate everything even more. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining everyone at school looking at those screenshots, thinking that was really me. Around 2 a.m., I went downstairs for water and found Dad still up, researching cyber harassment laws on his laptop. He looked so tired but determined. It made me feel both loved and guilty for causing so much trouble. The next morning, I forced myself to go back to school. Mom offered to let me stay home, but I knew hiding would just make the rumors worse. I put on my most confident outfit, black jeans, boots, and the denim jacket I always get compliments on, like armor. In English, Mr. Benson paired us for peer editing, and everyone shifted anxiously when he called my name. He ended up partnering me with Jane, a quiet girl who usually sits in the back. To my surprise, Jane was actually normal with me. She didn't act weird or avoid eye contact. She just asked about my essay and gave thoughtful feedback. When class ended, she mentioned she'd seen the fake profile and knew it wasn't really me because the writing style was completely different. It was such a small thing, but knowing even one person didn't believe the worst about me felt huge. At lunch, I was heading to the library again when Hunter texted, asking if I wanted to meet in the music practice rooms. They're small, soundproofed rooms where band kids practice, but they're usually empty during lunch. I agreed, even though I was nervous about being seen with him. We sat on the floor, sharing his earbuds, listening to a new album he thought I'd like. We didn't talk much about the drama, which was a relief. It was just 30 minutes of normal teenage stuff, music, complaining about homework, talking about movies. When the bell rang, he checked the hallway before we left, and we went in opposite directions. That weekend, Hunter asked if I wanted to go hiking at the state park with him and his cousin who was visiting from college. It wasn't exactly a date, but it was a chance to hang out away from school drama. Mom was hesitant, but agreed after I promised to keep my phone on and text her every hour. The hike was exactly what I needed. Fresh air, physical activity, and conversation that had nothing to do with high school nonsense. Hunter's cousin, Matt, was cool and treated me normally since he didn't know anything about the drama. For a few hours, I remembered what it felt like to just be a regular teenager. When Hunter dropped me off, he awkwardly asked if I might want to go to a movie sometime, just the two of us. I said yes before I could overthink it. He looked relieved and smiled. The first genuine smile I'd seen from him in weeks. Monday at school, things took another turn. The fake dating profile had been taken down. But now there were rumors that I was secretly dating Hunter. Someone had seen us at the state park and jumped to conclusions. By third period, Valeria had heard about it. She cornered me in the bathroom between classes. For a minute, I thought she might actually hit me. She looked so angry. Instead, she just stared at me and said I would regret trying to steal her boyfriend. I pointed out that he wasn't her boyfriend anymore, and she wasn't pregnant either. Her face got all blotchy, and she stormed out without washing her hands. At lunch, I told Hunter about the bathroom confrontation. He looked worried and suggested maybe we should cool things off for a while. I felt disappointed, but understood his reasoning. The last thing either of us needed was more drama. When I got home, Valeria had posted another vague Instagram about girls who don't respect relationships and karma coming for liars. She didn't tag me, but everyone knew who she meant. The comments were full of her friends posting supportive messages and snake emojis. I decided to delete Instagram from my phone again. I didn't need to see that toxic stuff. The next morning, someone had written "boyfriend stealer" on my locker in Sharpie. The janitor tried to clean it off, but you could still see the ghost of the words. Principal Matthew saw it and finally seemed to take things more seriously. He called me to his office and asked if I knew who might have done it. I said I had my suspicions, but no proof. He surprised me by saying they would review the hallway security footage. After school, Hunter texted to check in. Despite his suggestion to cool things off, he still wanted to make sure I was okay after the locker incident. We ended up talking on the phone for an hour that night. He told me Valeria had been texting him constantly, sometimes angry, sometimes apologizing, sometimes threatening to tell everyone he pressured her into faking the pregnancy. He finally blocked her number. The next day at school, I was called back to Principal Matthews' office. To my shock, Valeria was there, too, looking sullen. The principal informed us that the security footage clearly showed Valeria writing on my locker. She was being given in-school suspension for vandalism and harassment. Valeria didn't even try to deny it. She just glared at me like this was somehow my fault. The principal warned us both that any further incidents would result in more serious consequences. He also mentioned that my previous suspension was being reviewed in light of new information. I left his office feeling vindicated, but also nervous about potential backlash. If Valeria was angry before, she would be furious now. But at least the school was finally taking action instead of dismissing everything. When I told my parents about the suspension, they were cautiously optimistic. Dad said it was about time the school did something, while Mom worried it would just make Valeria even more determined to retaliate. Actively stirring things up, the drama seemed to die down a bit. People still whispered sometimes, but it felt less intense. Jane and I worked on our English project together, and Hunter and I continued our secret lunch meetings in the practice rooms. On Friday, Hunter officially asked me to go to a movie with him on Saturday, not as friends, but as a date. I said yes, even though I was nervous about how people would react. We agreed to go to a theater in the next town. Over the next few days were strangely quiet. Valeria was in in-school suspension, and without her, are to avoid running into anyone from school. The date was both wonderful and awkward. We were both so nervous that we barely talked during the first half of the movie. But afterward, over pizza, the conversation finally started flowing. We talked about everything: our families, our plans after graduation, our favorite music. It felt normal and nice. He held my hand as we walked back to his car, and I didn't even worry about who might see us. When he dropped me off, we sat in his car talking for another hour. He apologized again for believing Valeria's lies and explained how manipulative she had been throughout their relationship. When he finally kissed me goodnight, it felt like the first truly good thing to happen in months. Of course, by Monday morning, someone had spotted us at the pizza place, and word had spread. The whispers started again as soon as I walked into school. In the bathroom, I overheard two girls discussing whether I had stolen Hunter from Valeria or if he was just using me to make her jealous. Neither considered that maybe we actually liked each other. Valeria was back from suspension and clearly knew about the date. She walked past me in the hallway and deliberately bumped my shoulder hard enough to make me drop my books. She didn't say anything, just gave me a cold look and kept walking. At lunch, Jane waved me over to her table. As I sat down, she quietly warned me that Valeria and her friends were planning something. She didn't know what exactly, but she'd overheard them talking about teaching me a lesson. I thanked her for the warning and tried to act normal through lunch, but inside, I was panicking. After school, I told Hunter about Jane's warning. He looked worried and offered to drive me home. As we walked to the parking lot, we saw Valeria and three of her friends waiting by my usual route. Hunter put his arm around my shoulders and walked confidently past them. They didn't do anything except glare, but it was intimidating nonetheless. In the car, Hunter suggested we just go public with our relationship. He argued that sneaking around made it seem like we had something to hide, which just fed into Valeria's narrative. I was scared of the backlash, but agreed it might be better than constantly looking over our shoulders. The next day, we walked into school together, not hiding the fact that we were now a couple. Valeria's reaction was exactly what I expected. By lunch, she had posted a long, dramatic Instagram story. She didn't name names, but included enough details that everyone knew who she meant. Her friends were shooting daggers at us in the cafeteria. That weekend, Hunter and I went to the mall together, openly as a couple. We ran into a few people from school, but most just nodded and went about their business. Someone took a picture of us, probably to send to her, but we decided not to care. My parents have relaxed a little as things have improved. Mom still checks in more than she used to, but she's not hovering constantly. Dad has been teaching me to drive his car on weekends, which gives us time to talk without directly discussing all the drama. Yesterday was the last day of school before break. As I was cleaning out my locker, Tiffany walked by with some other girls. Instead of the usual dirty looks, she just nodded. Summer starts tomorrow. I'm focusing on my driving test, getting ready for college applications, and trying to rebuild my life. My family is closer now. I know who my real friends are, not many, but that's okay. And I've learned more about myself than I ever wanted to. If anyone's in a similar situation, my only advice is to find at least one person who believes you, and remember that high school, even though it feels like your whole world right now, is temporary. The people who matter will eventually see the truth. This whole experience was devastating, but it taught me invaluable lessons about trust, betrayal, and standing up for yourself. So, what do you think? Have you ever had a friendship turn toxic like this? Or been caught in a situation where doing the right thing felt like the worst possible choice? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious to hear from you.